Hello, everyone. My name is Elisa Ewan, and I am the Assistant Director of Alumni Relations at Teachers College. Thank you for joining us for this virtual event sponsored by Alumni Relations. This is one of the many ways you can stay engaged with your TC family. I'd like to quickly remind you of a few more ways you can maintain a meaningful connection with TC. 1. Hire TC alumni and students. 2. Refer prospective students back to the college. 3. Show your pride by including Teachers College in all of your professional credentials. 4. Share your talent and expertise by volunteering to speak at TC events or by joining one of our Alumni Association committees. And 5. When the time is right for you, support TC financially by donating to the TC Fund. We are especially grateful for the TC alumni who share their knowledge for all of the TC community to learn together. And now I would like to introduce today's events presenter, Ronah Harris, who will be teaching our anime and manga drawing workshop. Ronah Harris is the founder of Play Pattern LLC, a learning company. She was trained as a learning scientist in the Mathematics, Science, and Technology program at Teachers College and specializes in designing for K-12 learning and leading teams to adopt new technologies. She is a fierce advocate of computer science as a form of literacy. Ronah has been awarded 2 Daytime Emmy Awards for her creative work on 2 educational television shows, Sesame Street and The New Electric Company. In addition, she has written curriculum and trained K-12 teachers in computer science, design, and media literacy at both independent and public schools in the region. Ronah has lectured and published on topics of cognition, creativity, innovation, technology, and design. She currently lives in Princeton, New Jersey, and makes art in her studio at wacky hours of the night. As we get ready to start our workshop, please make sure you have some paper and drawing utensils such as pencils, markers, pens, Sharpies, crayons, whatever you have on hand. Ronah will also be demoing some techniques on the iPad using Adobe Draw, just to explore the digital ways artists can create layers and use other tools. We also encourage everyone to upload your drawings to our Padlet, which we will share at the end of the workshop. We will share the link to the Padlet in the chat momentarily. If you have any technical or audio issues, please let us know in the chat how we can help you. And now I hope you're ready to draw and create with us today. Without further ado, please help me welcome Ronah Harris.
Hi, everybody. So I'm excited to get you started drawing. I'm going to just talk really briefly about why I think it's so important for everyone to draw. And I'll also say, as a caveat, I never thought I could draw. I was always pretty creative as a kid and I could use my fingers to sew, but I realized that drawing is one of those particular skills that I believe everyone has in them. Just like you have your own unique handwriting, you have your own unique way of holding a pen or a pencil or a Sharpie or a crayon or any other type of utensil to really get your expression out. And over the past year being at home, I picked up a lot of drawing. In fact, I took a couple of drawing classes and I learned a lot about manga and anime, 2 things that I've always loved. And I'm going to talk a little bit about those things, and then we're just going to get in and we're going to draw today. I'm going to show you as much as I can in this hour. And the reason why is because I think the more you know and the more you try, the more your creativity will be sparked and you'll have an opportunity to really go back and try these things on your own if anything sparks your imagination or your vision. You're going to see me use a couple of different cameras today. So I have one camera that I'm going to be on, but I may disappear. There'll also be a camera here that you're going to see for drawing and some demos. And then eventually you're going to see my iPad show up as well. About midway through our session, we're going to switch from paper and pencil drawing to using techniques on an iPad and looking at Adobe Draw as a particular software that I use pretty often for some of my digital work. We're going to get started right away with looking at manga. Manga is an art form that originated in Japan as a form of storytelling and has really expanded in terms of its understanding both for print storytelling and for storytelling on screen. And so for me, it's a really inspiring, very simplistic use of lines to talk about expression. So we're going to get started on a face today. Let's talk a little bit about some of the aspects that you may need to create a great face. And let's just get started with some eyes. So the first thing I like to do is take a look at the eyes. The eyes in manga tell a lot about the story that you might want to tell. In a lot of manga and anime, you're going to see large eyes, a little bit larger than we have on a typical human face. I am drawing sort of this upside down eye, and then I like to definitely go in with two lines that give me distinctions on where those eyes may be, okay? There's lots of different ways that I might want to draw an eye. I may also want to do sort of like a curved eye where I do a very simple two lines there and then swing that around. What's going to be really important with manga eyes is going to be the insides. How am I actually going to attend to this character and give it a little bit more of a dynamic look? So just in a simple black and white, I can use certain types of stipple or a really simple back and forth to get some shading in. And then of course, I've always got to keep, really super dark pupil for that eye, because obviously that's how the character is going to see. For much of manga, it's going to be really important, all these lines that go around the eye. They start to tell some of the story of that particular character, whether the character is going to be surprised or whether the character is going to be angry. So there's lots of different simplistic ways that I can go in and I can add in dimension to how this particular character may feel based on what I do with the construction of those particular lines. All right. And there we have two really simple but very different expressions that I was able to create by using that approach of making lines and considering how the eyes look. All right, let's keep going with a couple of more aspects of the face. Before we get started with a full face, let's talk again about something else that's super important, which is our mouth and our nose. So manga noses are really simplistic. Generally, it could be a line in that direction. It could be a line in that direction. It could be just really simple two lines. It's going to be important to keep it as simplistic as possible. For those of you who see my camera might be a little dark, pardon that. I'll try to get some more light on it. But if you notice, they're real three simple lines just for that nose. The same thing goes for a mouth. My mouth is not going to be too complex. I've got three different mouths on my paper here, and all three of them give a different expression. But if you notice, they're just using very simplistic approaches to the drawing. So let's put all three of these together in a simple face. And then I'm going to talk to you a little bit about shaping your head, how you're going to organize things like your ears and your hair, and then we'll just go a little bit deeper. So let me get started again on some eyes. I think I'm going to go in this direction for my two eyes. I'm also going to make this a little bit darker. I'm going to add a little bit of some eyelash. And then I'm gonna bring in my eyeballs and my pupils and just continue to add on elements that are important. For this, I think I'm going to switch up and maybe give it a different color. Remember, for manga and for anime, color is really going to be important. So have a few colors. Maybe now you add a little bit of color to your particular eye. And when it comes to color, obviously I'm using a Sharpie. If you're using something that allows for you to what's called create an opacity, that means you're using things like a very light marker or that can, show through various levels, or you have a colored pencil. Take your time and really think about how you want to shade in that eye. It's really important in the cartooning that you provide yourself with, a little bit of space to play, to think about the various dynamics of how color might interplay to create a new shape or really be able to make that character more dynamic. Now I'm going to go in. I think what I'm going to do is try to make someone who's happy. So I'm going to bring in some lines underneath the eye that go upward. Why not be happy? Why not create really great imaginative characters that express an emotion that I like? Everybody likes to be happy, I hope. Now, again, let's talk about how that nose and mouth are really simplistic. So there we go with a simple nose. And I think I'm gonna give it a little curved mouth like that. So obviously I know some of the pieces that have to go into my face. Now the most important part, obviously, is the head. And so let's take a couple of minutes and talk about heads. And then we're going to put all these things together. So for me, my head could be built in two ways. One is I can do like this, and usually this is what I do. I don't go in straight with a fine line that's going to be that final face line immediately. I take my time. I'm going to make mistakes. Every artist does, and that's part of the process, but it's also part of the process to think about what you have on the line and how you can actually make it, useful for you. So this is the head that I'll start off with. It's not possibly the best head I've ever drawn, but it's there. I'm going to think very strategically about my spacing. And so let's talk about where things end up on your head. And in order to do that, I'm just going to draw some reference lines just to get me started and thinking about the face, the head, and where things belong. So for those of you who are great at math, let's do a quick estimation of the space. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put two little markers down that indicate that I'm a third, and a third. These thirds are really helpful. First of all, this third is going to be called my hairline. That's where hair is going to get started on that particular face. So if you notice, this face is going to be down below in this area. This is going to be considered my ear line, okay? And my ear is going to actually go here. So I'm going to take that. This is an opportunity to make sure I draw in my ears. And my ears are a great reference point for me to draw in the other elements of my face, which are going to be obviously my eyes, my nose, and my mouth. Those are the major reference points for any particular piece of art that you're going to draw that's going to use manga style. Again, as I said, you have a hairline. You're going to need to place in eyebrows. Eyebrows should be a little bit above your eyes. And if I want the character to have a little bit of happiness, then I'll go a curve up. If I'm, looking upset, maybe I'll use that as a mouth line, something a little bit more curious. If I want a character to look like they've got their mouth open, perhaps I go like this. That gives me the illusion of a little tooth mark. and a mouth that's open. So these are the basic principles of just getting a face that's going to be organized. There's something that I learned during my drawing classes that I want to share with you. Our necks are a lot wider than we typically think they are. And so when you get into drawing your body, I want you to always consider where your neckline is and kind of how those get organized to balance off the rest of your face. There's another way to draw a head, and I'm gonna do that over here. And this one is not necessarily my favorite way, but some people do appreciate it because they get to get different balance on the face. So if I were to draw a bit of sort of not a circle, but close to it, some type of oval shape, and then I bring down a draw line, I'm able to also look at the dimensions of my face and clearly say, okay, I know exactly where I'm gonna place things. So again, it's another technique, another style. If you're using a pencil, obviously you would do a lot of erasing to get rid of those extra lines and make sure that you have the consistency that you want. And for this one, it's actually pretty simple because this is going to have a couple of reference points as well. The main reference point to me, again, is going to be my ear, and my ear is going to show up here. Sort of like a midpoint between this particular, two pieces where they join. And it's going to be pretty simple for me to know my nose needs to go right here. My mouth should go pretty much right underneath. And then I have a location as to where my eyes should be located. Here we go. And if you notice, this particular hairline is different. The hairline actually is here. It's not going to start a little bit further down. Now, in order to really get a character that I think you all are used to, one of the key pieces for manga is hair. And so let's talk a little bit about hair, and then let's get some hair on these folks. So hair comes in two ways in terms of drawing. And I'm actually been doing a lot of research myself to find other ways that I can represent hair. In particular, you all can see I've got this bush of curly hair, and I want my hair also kind of in some of the images that I draw. But I noticed that there are two main approaches to drawing hair. And one of them is going to be that you're going to use sort of these double lines. And double lines, if you notice, can go parallel or they can cut across. And the goal is to get as many that look as though they sort of connect to create these jumbles of hair. Another option for hair is that hair can be wavy. And so a wavy hair is going to be presented in manga like this. And so you're going to cut across or try your best to kind of get these waves together, okay? So again, straight or wavy in terms of lines and the actual hands and your movement of drawing. But in terms of actually having hair on a character, again, you're gonna work off your hairline and you're gonna have your approach that you want to take to getting characters to have some hair. Part of our hair process is also going to be to get a little jumbled or use length as an option. And once I've got those lines kind of like loosely defined, that's when I'm going to go in and I'm going to use color to help to form and shape what should be an interesting set of hair pieces for my characters. So again, I'm using these as a loose baseline. This is when I go in and make corrections or rethink, okay, maybe I need to add a layer here or a layer there. And so if you're working in pencil, this is sort of the best time for you to reconsider what you drew and whether or not you need to redraw it. If you're a person who likes to work in Sharpie, I do sometimes, particularly when I'm doing sort of a large demo, I'm gonna always consider, okay, do I have to keep this line? Can I draw over it? Can I use a different color? We're always going to consider layers important in the hair, and it helps to add dimension, right? So we always want to think, okay, how do I make this character that is two-dimensional into a three-dimensional character? There are a couple of things that you can do. You can have the hair change length. You can have it push backwards or forwards. You can always go up. You can always go down. So you all see the sort of like what it looks like raw. And raw drawings in Manga are great to work with, particularly if you're using a lot of paper and pencil and you want to get things kind of interesting and, you know, sort of down. In a couple of minutes, we're going to switch over to what I do when I work in digital, but I want to show you a few things that I think are helpful for everybody, and we'll go over one character. And so that way, at least as we draw together, we have a few characters. So in manga and in anime, and I know this is like a hot topic, but I'll put it out there anyway. There's a lot about whether or not a character's feminine, a character's more masculine, whether they're mature or whether they're youthful, okay? And so these are things that come up in all of the characters that we build. Our body proportions and our bodies tend to be more traditional. So I think it's important that if you're, you know, choosing that you want to explore or experiment, that you think about whether or not you're doing a more traditional approach or you're doing something that is brand new. Today, what I am gonna do is do a female, and I'm gonna choose to do sort of like a female who's got a little spunk. So let's get started drawing her. I'd like you all to sort of work along with me, and I'm going to talk a little bit about proportions as I go through it. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to always, for me, outline how the character and how long the character is, okay? So the first line that you're going to see is where the face and the head will show up. Then I'm going to cut across and do some shoulders. My shoulders, I like to use sort of these markers that help me understand where they're going to show up and how they're going to be positioned. It's almost like a skeleton for those of you who have used some of the like how-to draw books. This one's a helpful tool that's constantly used. It allows for me to see proportionally how big things are and where they should go. So I've gotten now my arms drawn out. Now I need to work from my shoulders all the way down to my torso. My torso is going to have its own sizing. So I'll draw that out or sketch it out. And then I'm going to also have these hip bones that need to show up. And I'm going to get started on my leg. So I've got my hips to my knees, and then I think this character is just going to get cut off sort of a little bit lower than the knee. So for me, this is a great outline to be able to then start drawing on top of it a character. If you notice even though I'm using a Sharpie, it's pretty light in terms of my actual markers, and I'm going to lift this up just a little bit so you guys can see the tip of my page because that's where the head's going to be. And so I'm going to get started just sort of like drawing this character from the side. And I'm going to bring in where the ears will be, and that allows me to bring down for a neck point. And I have a real basic outline for my character. The next thing that I'm going to get started on is actually going in and doing way more detail. So I think I'm going to draw this character in red. So I think she'll show up in red. There we go. So I'm going to bring some attention to the shape of the face. My face is usually going to have a little bit more of a pointy chin than a typical human face. This particular face is also going to be turned to the sides. So I am going to use my markers just to outline where her eyes are going to be located, and the nose is not going to be in the center, it's going to be to the side. And I'm going to give her some eyebrows, and I'll work on my eyes a little bit. All right. So I've got some baseline of what that character might be looking like. And again, I can go back in with some black. And I can sort of ignore those reference lines that I gave myself earlier and just really work on getting the baseline of that character in. All right. And now I've only just got this one little line that kind of doesn't make sense, but it was my reference point. Now the next piece of importance for me to draw, I'm actually not going to go straight to her body. I'm going to give her an accessory. And the accessory we're going to do is we're going to do like a trucker hat. So for the trucker hat, I am going to consider how I do sort of this three-dimensional thing that is a little foreshortened, and I'm able to then sort of give just like a little bit of attitude in my character. Maybe she's a little bit of a skater girl. All right. Again, these are reference points that are underneath. So for me, I'm going to go back in, maybe this time with another color, and make sure that I use as much as I can in order to make sure the design has some flow. The next thing that I'm going to do is start working on her hair. So I'm going to give her just a couple of strands of hair, and this is a reference again. It's going to help me to know where to put her body. I'm going to go back into the hair after I do a little bit of her body makeup. So that's what I'm going to work on next. Let's make sure that we get a neck. We're going to make sure that we have some shoulders. Okay. And I, instead of drawing what will be underneath her, because I'm not going to do multiple layers of drawing and then erasing, I'm going to go directly into her outfit, which is going to be sort of the stadium jacket. Okay, so I'm going to go right here, make sure I got a good collar. We're going to do another collar over here, and we're going to go sort of like a large jacket. That's where her body will end. And I'm gonna let the bodice of the jacket frame her. All right, that gives me a lot to work with. I'm definitely gonna need to go back and do a lot of coloring and really like make the jacket a little interesting, but at least it gives me a baseline to work from. And now the next thing that I'm going to work on is I'm going to work on just giving her a little bit of an undergarment under this jacket. So I'm going to close off the jacket here. I'm going to bring around the front so that it's tiered. I'm also going to do the same thing from the side. So we have a little bit of a zipper line and a front line. And then I'm going to offer like a little t-shirt right there, so that she has something underneath the jacket. I'm also going to give her a skirt. So in terms of her body, if you notice, these would be the center parts of her legs. And if I were to make sure that she's got her hips and everything fair, I'm going to actually take the time now to draw out her legs. Okay. And this is going to be super important to make sure that I sort of attend to the rest of the body to make sure that it's actually proportioned or aligned well with where I want her positioning to be. Now I can go in, I can start doing some details. Remember, details are gonna be super important in terms of clothing. I'm gonna, you know, create little lines where her seams would be. I'm gonna get started on making sure she has access to a pocket. I'm gonna go back in and sort of like do the lines that would be the bottom of the jacket. I'm gonna go in and do lines that would seem like a cuff. All these little details are gonna really be important to the ends and what's gonna be hopefully a cute final piece. I'm also going to get her to smile, and I'm gonna get her to blow a little bubble gum. Or this could always be a speech bubble. It's important whenever you're thinking about anime, particularly if you're thinking for a paper-based project, that you have characters that speak, that you're considering where they speak, how they speak, what they're doing. And now I can go in and I can sort of be a little more creative with my spacing and thinking about lines. This other hand can get hidden in the background. I can, you know, define her skirt a little bit different than perhaps her jacket. So it gives me a lot of options to be able to then go in and, you know, recreate this character. And if you notice what I'm using in terms of my lines and drawing, this approach is called stipple. It is an approach of drawing that allows for you to go very quickly. If you notice, I'm going in one direction and then I go back over the same area in another direction. And that just gives me like an ability to kind of control my pen quickly and get an understanding of defined lines. Again, you all see all these pieces that maybe I would have erased if I was using a digital tool, if I was using a paper and pencil. But for you all, I figure Sharpie kind of is a quick and great way to show you some of the techniques, particularly since we're distanced. All right, so I'm gonna stop there. I would use this as a baseline just in order to think about positioning, think about where you're gonna go in terms of proportions. In general, the body of a character in manga is gonna be about 6 heads for females. Okay, it's about 6 heads for females. I made mine way longer. It's 7 heads for males. Okay, so you're gonna think about what that shape is gonna be, how large it's gonna be, and then you're gonna hopefully stay within the markers, if that makes sense. My legs are a little bit longer than they needed to be for that one. All right, so we're gonna stop here and I am going to switch to doing some iPad work. For those of you who don't have an iPad, it's totally fine, stay on with us, because the work that I do, I'm gonna both demo, but also talk to you about the reasoning behind it, and I'll also go through some more drawing techniques. So even if you don't have an iPad or you're not going to be on an iPad, that's fine. I'd like for you to, you know, at least sit back and enjoy the rest of the demonstrations. So just give me a second. I'm going to get started broadcasting, and you'll see that I'm going to broadcast on another screen. And today what we're going to use is we're going to use Adobe Draw, which is a free tool if you have an Adobe account. Before I get started, I'm just going to show you a couple of sort of just characters I've been working on recently. Again, I told you all I've been working with this idea of hair. I've been thinking about characters that have emotion. And I personally have been also looking at perspective. So various things. Today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get started with just like a postcard size image. If you notice, there are some things that show up on screen immediately. you're going to see that you have options for different tools. And if you double click on the tool, you'll see that you have the ability to change that tool. So for instance, I personally like to use this particular pen, but this isn't the size that I want. So I'm going to change my sizing, or I'm going to change my opacity. This particular tool is really helpful. And obviously I can go in and change my color. Whenever I draw inside of a digital program, I usually use blue as my particular color to do all of my outlines. And the reason why I do that is because, again, it's a lot of erasing and a lot of redrawing. So for this demo, I'm going to get started on a profile image. I'm going to bring up my actual stroke weight on my pen, and I'm going to begin by just drawing a circle. Now, again, I'm in blue because this is not going to be my final drawing. In fact, I may decide that I want to retrace or draw this entire image, and that's what I'm going to demonstrate for you. So I'm going to also get started by using sort of this little squarish type of shape right here. This will get me a little bit more on my profile, okay? And now that I have these two references, I'm going to add another image. It's going to be a drawing layer. I'm also going to change to a color that I want this final drawing to be, which is black. I'm going to change my stroke weight, bring it down just a little bit, and I'm going to get started the actual drawing of the character. So for me, I'm going to get started again on this next drawing layer to use the shape that I had before as a baseline, and I'm going to draw my nose, and I'm going to go in and draw like a mouth a little bit, and then I'm also going to draw a chin. So all these things that I know I need, I'm going to just place in this little area. For my nose, I'm also going to just add that little marker, and I'm going to bring up to have my forehead. And now that I know where my forehead goes, I'm going to do a couple of things. I'm going to get started on my outline of my eye. I'm also going to bring in my eyebrow. And again, this is a profile image, so I'm going to use just a simple eye that looks like that. Maybe I do a little bit of an extension of some more expression into that eye. Okay, in a lot of manga, you may see little markers that allow for you to kind of connect with the actual character. So you may want to go in and add a little bit there. The next thing that I need to do is bring my jawline back. And once I bring my jawline back, I'm going to add in my ear. Right, add in a little bit of dimension there. Make sure I sort of curve it so it really does look like an ear. And then the last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to get started on hair. So in order to do my hair, before I do that, I'm going to bring down just a little neckline there. And I'm going to start over here just with some, again, what I were talking about, not totally parallel, but lines that kind of intersect and go around. I'm gonna then swoop down and bring some more layers in. And typically what I like to do, although I got started on my hair in this way, I'm gonna go back actually for a moment, and I'm gonna add on a separate layer that will become my hair. The reason why I'm doing that correction in my workflow is because I really think it's important that when you're working with hair, that you allow for your hair to be its own separate thing, its own separate layer. Number one, you may make changes on the hair or a character, and you have at least like the baseline of the face in a digital version that you won't be upset if you change. I do that a lot, and you'll be surprised how just a simple hair change or a hair color tells a lot about a character. The other reason why I do it that way is when I'm coloring, and I'm going to talk about coloring digitally in a second, I like to be able to maybe add some shading or some other elements to hair that I possibly do not want on my character's skin. So for those of you who are able, it's good to consider how you use your layers and what layers are useful for. Given that I have several layers, right, both my face and my hair layer, I always have to do a little bit due diligence to make sure I'm drawing on the proper layer. And you can do that when you see a little orange halo around each one of your boxes. So depending on which layer you're on is going to be the dependent of whether or not it's highlighted. If you notice, I kind of have a character already, so I'm going to hide these blue reference marker. I did that by clicking on the little eyeball once I highlight my layer, and now it's hidden. And if I need to reference it again, I can, but I don't need to. I'm going to go back in here and I'm going to make some needed changes. So I'm going to highlight from my toolbox my eraser. I'm going to bring the size down because I like to actually do more precision work with my eraser. And I'm also at the same time going to bring my image up closer. So I can get in and I can get into the lines that I want to change pretty easily. And that allows me to kind of restructure that mouth and that nose that maybe I didn't draw so well the first time. I am all about you all thinking about how you can revise. I don't know too many artists who go in the first time and everything is perfect. It really does take that trial and error. It takes using the tools that you have to improving the quality of your image. And at the end of the day, this particular drawing is going to tell its own story. And what works, works, and what doesn't, right? So there may be a line that I thought was going to work before I put it down, and in the composition, it just looks awful. So get rid of it. Once we have that, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how I like to color. So for me, color is important, particularly in digital. And I always need to add on a separate drawing layer that I use for coloring. The reason why I do it separately, not in my black and white, is because, as you know, things change. So you'll have the option of going back into a separate layer and making changes if you need to with coloring. So let me just get started. I'm gonna use actually a different pen. I'm gonna bring the opacity up. I'll take the size down a little bit, and then I'm gonna choose a nice skin color. I'll have her sort of like golden. And then I'm going to go in and do the actual work of coloring. So again, remember that there's no particular start or stop point in your eyes. So you really do have to be kind of thoughtful about how and what you're going to draw in terms of your skin, in terms of your eyes, and how those lines get delineated through color. I don't typically do a lot of shading when it comes to skin tones, but that also helps to create a little level of sort of like dimension, or if you want to have shadow in your character, those are elements that I have seen plenty of artists doing. For me, I'm gonna give like a little hint. And again, this is another reason why I like to have my color layers separate as well. When I go in and do my hair, the fact that I actually sort of drew outside or colored outside the lines on the ear is not gonna make any difference whatsoever. That's gonna get fixed when I deal with my hair layer. I'm gonna quickly bring in some hair color. So again, I have another layer. I'm gonna drag and drop that layer below in order of my hair. So my hair is my top layer. Then I have the color, face, outline, and then I have the color. And the reason why I have those as that sequence is because, again, well, actually, let me just show you. If I were to put my color above my drawing line, that's what I would get. Something that doesn't have that sharpness, doesn't have the outline, and it's below it. So again, just make sure that you have things in a proper sequence when you're actually coloring. For this one, I'm gonna do something a little different. Maybe I think I might give her like a hot pink and do a combination of colors. I'm not going to draw on this particular layer that's highlighted. Again, I need to go to that blank layer that's right below my hair. And I think I'm going to give her a couple of highlights. Doesn't have to be perfect. Again, I can always go in and clean up with some precision erasing. That's the joy of digital artwork, is that you have all these tools right in front of you, and you can get things done at a different speed than you would if you were doing paper and pencil. I personally love paper and pencil drawing. It does create something different. There are and will continue to be amazing digital artists, and the digital work that I see all over the place, I see some on Instagram, I see a lot on people's personal pages, and different artists are now, doing different collaborations. But I think there's something different that you get from each one, both paper and pencil and from digital, which is why I asked to demo both. And again, I'm going to use sort of what makes the most sense in terms of looking at how do I keep that coloring, how do I keep layers, how do I keep a little bit of dimension. I'm not going to, at this time, do much shading. The reason why is because I know, given our time, shading does take a lot of time, but I will just give you a couple of little hints about shading before I finalize this and move on. So there we go. And maybe, no, that's not gonna work, but I could use a little bit of opacity to give her just a little hint of color by her eyebrows, right? I can go in and I drop my opacity, which means that I can get a little bit of shade coming in to those highlighted areas. All right. I tend to like colors like gray because they add just a little bit of dynamic color to a shape, and it helps to push it and make it look a little bit more dimensional, three-dimensional as opposed to flat. When it comes to hair, all of the pieces do not need to be in the place. However, you may want to. So if you're going to go a little slower, you might want to bring all your shading into one particular line sequence that you already drew. What's also great about this is you can always go back in and make more outline changes, because again, your color is separate from your actual drawing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up this one also. It brings the color of the hair a little bit back. And I think for my hair, I also, there's many different things you can do. You can change the opacity on your hair, so you can decide whether or not you like it like that or not. But I think what I'm going to do is just take a little bit of time and sort of clean up around it. Right? So I'm going to clean up that color so that it's not sort of completely out of place. And then what I'm also going to do is I'm going to use my black line as well. And this time I'm going to go back. If you notice, I highlighted the actual layer that my outline was in, and I can use that as my opportunity to really do that work that I might have needed to do before that I didn't see when I was coloring. Again, like, this is not about getting it right the first time. This is about over and over, really, really looking consistently at the image and saying, okay, does this image fulfill what I'm looking for? Do I have the lines that allow me to tell, the viewer, this is something that's straight, or this is something that curves with a shape, or this is something that has a hint of light to it. So for that, I was able to just kind of go in and make some more changes that showed up on this particular hair outline layer. All right, so I'm gonna kind of leave her alone. I don't think she's finished, but I want to show you. I think we have time for maybe one quick little demo of what I like to draw the most, which are chibi. And so I'm gonna get just really quickly into a quick chibi character, and then we'll leave a little bit of time for Q&A. So for chibi are what are called cute. The word chibi stands for cute in anime, and I think many of you have probably seen little characters that are very, very small, but they're the small version of a larger character. And the reason why we like to use these are, one, in many stories, you might need to tell the story of a character's innocence, or perhaps they're in an emotional state that's very different. And so you would drop a chibi character in at that time to replace the main character and give us another version of them. They tend to be super simple, super cute. And I'm gonna just sort of do a few things to show you how you would get your chibi started. I see there's some questions, so I'm happy to start answering some questions in the chat while I draw. And in a second, I'll get rid of my window and sort of come back to you face to face. That's a pretty poor, quick version of a chibi, but I'm going to show you just some old chibis that I've drawn and why I think they're super cute. And then we can start answering some questions. So Elisa, do you want to take on the chat?
Yes. Hi, Rhoda. Everyone, if you have some questions for Rona, please feel free to input them in the Q&A pane, and then we'll ask them away.
All right, I'm going to stop sharing so I can come back to you. There we go.
No, of course. Hello again.
Hello.
Thank you so much for doing this tutorial for us. This was so much fun. I uploaded my drawings to Padlet. Please don't judge me too harshly on my creative ability.
No judgment free zone. The goal is to just draw. And can I just put this out there?
Yes, of course.
I thought I was the worst artist on the planet a couple of years ago. All right. Mm-hmm. My whole life has been spent looking at amazing artists and thinking about how to use their hand to tell stories. And I think if you stay on the place of telling a story and just relaxing, mm-hmm. there's something that you get about it, even if it doesn't turn out beautiful. The thing that you get is that you get a chance to just meditate. It's a different form of coming into yourself. And it doesn't have to be a product that everybody loves. Mm-hmm. Just the process alone, I found, just really relaxed me, especially during a year that's been absolutely stressful and completely not what any of us expected. And so I throw that out there. I throw the challenge, just draw.
Oh, I love it. There's something about being able to be creative. It's just so cathartic. And I think with everything that's been going on, both, personally and professionally for everyone on the call and everyone around the world, it's nice. It's needed. It just allows us to kind of meditate and just kind of be in the moment and just not stress out about everything. So I love it. Well, as we wait for these questions, I actually have a question for you. I'm curious, how did you get into, anime and manga drawing?
Again, I worked in cartoons, mm-hmm. And I've been the producer. So I've picked artists for projects and written stories about it. And what I realized in my own practices is that I really like the stories. I like the characters. And so I wanted to just start drawing. My children were the one who pushed me. They said, okay, we're learning it. Why don't you do it too, Mom? And so that was a lot of stepping out of what was a comfort zone and trying something mm-hmm. new.
Oh, I love it. So we just got a question from someone who is a special education high school teacher. She has a lot of students who are thinking about anime or cartooning as a career. And so she's just curious, do you know of any programs or schools out there that could kind of help with these students pursue this line?
Absolutely. So the historical line is going to some of the art programs, right? There's a couple of art high schools in most of the major cities. If you're not in a major city, I compel you, make sure that your local school board knows you need art. That is going to be the first avenue. Parents will support it. The parents want it. They know what it means for their child to have art education. But I think there's been a lapse of what schools feel as their requirement and then what schools are willing to bring in terms of enrichment. So the first question is, how do I do it? Write a letter to your school board, a very simple letter. Ask parents to join you in the letter writing campaign. We want art in our school. Art is probably one of the largest payoff and least investment programs that schools can do. So right now they're putting tons and tons of funding into STEM and STEAM. That is art. Any engineer will tell you, you need to know how to draw and you need to know how to deal with three-dimensional shapes. And so if you can slip in anime and you can slip in cartooning and you can slip in three-dimensional learning and all these other things, then you have a baseline for saying, yes, we're doing exactly what you told us to do, and we're doing it through an applied field. Okay, the words are applied, and definitely, obviously, this is high interest for the kids. The other thing is that look at all of the SVA, there's a program out of California, UCLA, that does comic books. And I'm happy to share more resources. Check out our website. We're going to offer an anime manga workshop. I'm willing to work with anybody who feels like they have a group that they want to bring in to get some resources and support. And I have a great relationship with other artists. So we bring in guest artists. We bring in people from the industry to talk to kids and get them excited about it.
Oh, that's fantastic. And completely 100 agree with you on how important art is, especially arts education. I mean, I feel like people don't realize how arts really just traverse in other, fields of study, both mathematics, science, healthcare, mental health. So absolutely love that and 100% support. So we just got a question on, do you have any tips on how to make realistic body shapes?
Ooh, this has been a question for me too. So, because I have a realistic body shape. So there's a couple of things. I found one pretty good resource of a book of drawing the human body, and it's an anatomy book. And actually, again, drawing and biology, like push your educators to think outside the box. Please push them, because if anybody's going to go into medicine, they need to know the body. And the body doesn't look like stick figures, and it doesn't look like these like elongated characters who are just totally, not realistic with a head that would pop over. So I totally agree. And what I typically do is I make people sit for me. My family has all had to sit for a drawing, and that has made me learn that the body is different. Everybody has shape. Men have curves. I don't like all these kind of like horrible things that we've adopted as stereotypically the right thing are actually not right. And so just totally without judgment, just look at bodies and try to draw them. Try to think about how you can expose the female shape, you can expose the male shape, you can think about the in-between spaces, what we share, what we don't share, the length of the arms, the people's big feet, heads that are a little bit different. It's okay. Make it part of the process.
Oh, I love it. And I just want to do a quick shout out to everyone who's on the call and has been uploading to the Padlet. These drawings are absolutely incredible. I'm just so overwhelmed on just the creativity from this group. So thank you so much for, agreeing to share your drawings with everyone. They're fantastic. I know that we're at time right now, and I'm so sorry because I feel like we could keep talking. And
But I make one more shout out.
Oh, yes, please.
For people who didn't have an iPad, take a picture of your drawing and just put it on the Padlet. You can do it through your cell phone.
Mhm.
If you have a smartphone, if you don't have an iPad, or you can do it old school and you can always sort of like email it and put it, as long as you can get on the internet. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. So please share.
I love it. Well, I know that I know we weren't able to get to everyone's questions. I'm so sorry, but we'll definitely share, Play Patterns website, and you can contact Ronah that way. Ronah, thank you so much for taking the time to us to teach us how to draw in the anime. This was such a treat to be creative with you and learn at the same time. Everyone, I just want to let you know we are going to be sharing the recording in a post-event email, so you should receive that in the next few days. Please stay tuned to our emails and social media for details on future events, including managing relationships from a 360 view, building your relational social capital with alumna Diane Breesher on August 24th at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you at future TC alumni events. Until then, thank you so much for joining us and have a wonderful day.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Please stay in touch. Reach out. Bye bye.